What if the reason your life feels slow right now isn't because you're failing, but because you're being prepared for a level of power, success, and influence that would destroy the version of you that exists today? Why do some people remain invisible for years, only to suddenly rise beyond everyone's expectations? Why do the people who once ignored them become desperate for their attention? And most importantly, what invisible chains are preventing your own ascent? In this video, we will solve the greatest obstacle standing between you and extraordinary success, the mindset that keeps powerful people trapped in ordinary lives. Because according to Machiavelli, greatness does not arrive when opportunity appears. It arrives when you become the person capable of seizing it. You're about to skyrocket to a level no one saw coming. Not your friends, not your family, not the people who doubted you, and perhaps not even you. Most people believe success arrives gradually, like the slow turning of a wheel. But history tells a different story. Empires seem weak until the day they dominate continents. Kings appear insignificant until the moment they seize the throne. And ordinary men remain unnoticed until the world suddenly calls them extraordinary. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this better than most. He observed that power often grows in silence. The strongest foundations are built underground, invisible to the eyes of the crowd. While others seek attention, true strategists seek preparation. This is why many people misunderstand their own lives. They mistake preparation for stagnation. They mistake solitude for failure. They mistake silence for weakness. Yet these are often the very conditions that precede a dramatic rise. If you have felt disconnected from the people around you, if you feel as though you're changing while everyone else remains the same, if your ambitions have become too large for the conversations surrounding you, then what you're experiencing may not be decline. It may be evolution, because there comes a moment in every ambitious person's life when they stand between two identities, the person they have been and the person they are becoming. Most never cross that bridge. Fear pulls them back. Comfort seduces them. The opinions of others imprison them. But those who continue forward enter a realm few people ever reach, a realm where opportunities multiply, where influence expands, where confidence becomes unshakable, and where success no longer feels impossible, it becomes inevitable. Today, we will uncover the hidden signs that your rise is approaching, the mistakes that stop most people from reaching their potential, and the Machiavellian principles that transform ordinary individuals into forces no one can ignore. Because your next level is not waiting for permission, it is waiting for preparation. And by the end of this video, you may realize that the breakthrough you've been searching for has been quietly forming beneath the surface all along. Let's begin. Here's Keynote 1. The hidden transformation expanded into a Machiavelli-style narration script, 500+ words, with the heading included and no concluding transition. The hidden transformation. Have you ever noticed how the most dramatic changes in history appear to happen overnight? An empire seems weak for decades and then suddenly becomes unstoppable. An unknown man walks among the crowd, unnoticed by everyone around him, until one day his name commands attention, respect, and influence. To the outside world, it looks sudden. But Machiavelli understood a truth that most people never grasp. Nothing powerful is ever created overnight. The rise that shocks the world is merely the visible result of years of invisible transformation. This is where most people become confused about their own lives. They believe that if success is not visible, then progress must not be happening. If recognition does not arrive immediately, they assume their efforts are worthless. If the world does not applaud them, they begin to question their own potential, and so they abandon the very process that was preparing them for greatness. What they fail to understand is that transformation often hides itself. Before a tree rises toward the sky, its roots grow beneath the soil, where nobody can see them. Before a kingdom expands its borders, it strengthens its foundations. Before a strategist wins the battle, he spends countless hours preparing for a war nobody else knows is coming. The most important stage of growth is rarely visible. This is why your current situation may be deceiving you. You look at your life and see obstacles. You see delays. You see isolation. You see uncertainty. But what if these things are not signs of failure? What if they are signs that your old identity is being dismantled? Because every rise requires a death, not a physical death, a psychological one. The person you were 5 years ago cannot carry you to the level you are destined to reach. The habits must change. The mindset must change. The standards must change. Even the people around you may need to change. And this process is rarely comfortable. In fact, it often feels like everything is falling apart. Machiavelli observed that weakness often disguises itself as comfort. People cling to familiar routines because they fear uncertainty. They remain in environments that no longer serve them because the unknown feels dangerous. They continue seeking approval from people whose opinions have no value because rejection feels painful. But power demands evolution, and evolution demands sacrifice. The version of you that seeks constant validation cannot become powerful. The version of you that fears criticism cannot become influential. The version of you that depends on motivation cannot achieve extraordinary success. Those identities must be abandoned. This is why transformation feels lonely. You begin to think differently than the people around you. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Goals that once seemed impossible now feel necessary. You become less interested in fitting in and more interested in becoming. And because others cannot see the battle taking place inside you, they often misunderstand it. They assume you are becoming distant. They assume you are changing. And they are correct. You are changing. That is precisely the point. The caterpillar does not ask permission before becoming a butterfly. The eagle does not seek approval before leaving the nest. Nature itself understands that growth requires separation from what is familiar. Yet human beings resist this process. They fight against their own evolution. They try to remain the same person while demanding a completely different life. They want extraordinary results with ordinary habits. They want power without discipline. They want success without transformation. And because of this contradiction, they remain trapped. Meanwhile, those who embrace the hidden transformation begin accumulating invisible advantages. Their discipline becomes stronger. Their thinking becomes sharper. Their emotional control becomes greater. Their focus becomes more dangerous. Day after day, these improvements appear insignificant, but over time, they create a gap so large that it becomes impossible to ignore. Then comes the moment everyone calls luck. The promotion arrives. The business succeeds. The opportunities multiply. The recognition appears. The world finally notices. People look at your success and call it sudden. They call it unexpected. They say nobody saw it coming, but they are only seeing the final chapter. They never witnessed the years spent building foundations beneath the surface. They never saw the nights of doubt that strengthened your resilience. They never saw the sacrifices that forged your discipline. They never saw the countless moments when you chose growth over comfort, purpose over distraction, and ambition over approval, the power of silence. One of the greatest mistakes people make when they begin pursuing success is announcing their intentions too early. The moment they create a goal, they feel compelled to tell everyone about it. The moment they have an idea, they seek validation. The moment they make progress, they rush to display it. But Machiavelli understood something that few people are willing to accept. The more valuable your ambition is, the more dangerous it becomes to reveal it prematurely. Most people believe silence is weakness. They associate silence with fear, insecurity, and passivity. Yet throughout history, the individuals who accumulated the most power were rarely the loudest people in the room. They observed more than they spoke. They listened more than they revealed. They understood more than they exposed. Because silence is not the absence of power. Silence is often the protection of power. Think about it. When a king publicly announces every strategy, his enemies prepare defenses. When a businessman reveals every future move, competitors begin interfering. When an ambitious individual constantly shares every dream, every plan, and every objective, he invites unnecessary attention into his journey. And attention is not always support. Often, it becomes resistance. The world is filled with people who are comfortable with the version of you they already know. They understand your limitations. They understand your habits. They understand your role in their lives. But the moment you begin transforming, something changes. Your growth becomes a threat to their expectations. Not because they hate you, but because your evolution forces them to confront their own stagnation. And this is why so many dreams die before they are born. People seek approval from individuals who have never achieved what they aspire to achieve. They expose fragile ambitions to minds incapable of understanding them. They place their future in the hands of present opinions. Machiavelli would consider this a strategic error. A wise strategist does not expose unfinished work. A wise strategist does not reveal every intention. A wise strategist understands that secrecy creates freedom. The less people know about your plans, the less influence they have over your decisions. The less people know about your direction, the harder it becomes for them to distract you. The less people know about your ambitions, the easier it becomes to focus on execution instead of explanation, because explaining is seductive. It creates the illusion of progress. You tell people what you are going to accomplish. They praise you, they encourage you, they admire your vision, and suddenly your brain experiences a reward before any achievement has occurred. You receive satisfaction without results, recognition without accomplishment, validation without victory. Many people become addicted to this feeling. They talk endlessly about what they will do. Years pass. Nothing changes. Their lives become monuments to unrealized potential. Meanwhile, the silent individual continues working. No announcements, no declarations, no dramatic speeches, just action, day after day, week after week, year after year. The world overlooks him because the world is distracted by noise. But silence provides advantages that noise can never offer. When you remain silent, you become difficult to predict. People cannot easily calculate your intentions. They cannot determine your next move. They cannot prepare for a version of you they have never seen. This unpredictability creates power. Machiavelli repeatedly emphasized the importance of controlling perception. Most people misunderstand this principle. They believe controlling perception means constantly managing what others think. In reality, it often means giving others less information to work with. The less information people possess, the more difficult it becomes for them to define your limitations. And limitations are often created through perception long before they become reality. Perhaps the greatest benefit of silence is the relationship it creates with yourself. When nobody is watching, your motivation is tested. When nobody is applauding, your discipline is tested. When nobody is validating your progress, your commitment is tested. This is where real strength is forged. Not in public, not under applause, but in private moments where nobody knows whether you continue or quit. Anyone can appear ambitious when an audience exists. Anyone can seem determined when recognition is guaranteed. But very few people possess the capacity to work relentlessly while remaining invisible. Very few can tolerate being underestimated. Very few can endure the loneliness of preparation. Yet these individuals often achieve the most extraordinary outcomes. Because while others are speaking, they are building. While others are posting, they are improving. While others are seeking attention, they are accumulating capability. And capability will always outlast attention. Attention fades. Praise fades. Approval fades. But the skills, discipline, knowledge and strength developed in silence become permanent, assets that no one can take away. The fear of becoming powerful. Most people believe they fear failure. They spend years convincing themselves that their greatest obstacle is rejection, disappointment, or defeat. But Machiavelli would argue that something far more dangerous lurks beneath the surface, a hidden fear so powerful that it silently sabotages ambitions before they ever become reality. The fear of becoming powerful. At first, this idea sounds absurd. After all, who wouldn't want success? Who wouldn't want influence, wealth, confidence, freedom, and respect? Yet if you examine human behavior closely, a different picture emerges. People claim they want extraordinary lives, but when opportunities demand extraordinary sacrifices, they hesitate. They say they want success, but they cling to habits designed for mediocrity. They say they want freedom, but they remain attached to the comfort of familiar limitations. This contradiction reveals a profound truth. Many people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of what success will require from them. Because real power changes everything. It changes your responsibilities. It changes your relationships. It changes how people see you. And most importantly, it changes how you see yourself. The average person imagines success as a reward. Machiavelli understood that success is also a burden. The higher you rise, the fewer places remain to hide. The more influence you gain, the greater the expectations become. The more powerful you become, the less room exists for excuses. And this reality terrifies people more than they realize. As long as they remain unsuccessful, they can blame circumstances. They can blame bad luck. They can blame other people. They can blame the economy, their environment, or their past. But once success becomes possible, those excuses begin to disappear. Responsibility arrives, and responsibility demands accountability. This is why so many individuals unconsciously sabotage themselves just before major breakthroughs. They procrastinate. They delay important decisions. They create unnecessary distractions. They abandon routines that were producing results. They invent reasons to stop moving forward. From the outside, these actions appear irrational, but beneath the surface, they are protecting themselves from change, because every significant achievement destroys a previous version of who you are, and the human mind often resists that destruction. Imagine a prisoner who has spent decades inside a cell. Even if the door suddenly opens, freedom may feel terrifying. The prison is familiar. The outside world is uncertain. The same thing happens with personal growth. People become emotionally attached to their limitations. They identify with their struggles. They build entire identities around being overlooked, underestimated, or unlucky. Then one day, an opportunity appears that could transform everything. Suddenly they hesitate, not because they lack ability, but because accepting the opportunity means abandoning the identity they have carried for years. And identity is difficult to surrender. Machiavelli recognized that power requires constant reinvention. A ruler who refuses to adapt eventually loses control. A leader who clings to the past eventually becomes irrelevant. The same principle applies to individuals who cannot enter a new level while protecting every aspect of your old self. Some beliefs must disappear, some habits must disappear, some relationships must disappear, some versions of your personality must disappear. This is where many people turn back. They begin to realize that growth is not simply about gaining something, it is also about losing something. You lose certainty, you lose comfort, you lose the approval of people who preferred the smaller version of you. You lose the safety that comes from remaining invisible. And yet these losses are often necessary, because power demands courage. Not the courage to fight others, the courage to outgrow yourself, the courage to leave familiar territory, the courage to become someone your past self would barely recognize. When you understand this, many of your struggles begin to make sense. Perhaps the resistance you feel is not evidence that you are moving in the wrong direction. Perhaps it is evidence that you are approaching a level of growth that challenges your current identity. Perhaps the discomfort is not a warning sign. Perhaps it is proof that transformation is already underway. The people who eventually rise to extraordinary heights are not those who eliminate fear. They are those who stop obeying it. They understand that fear often appears whenever something valuable is within reach. The greater the opportunity, the stronger the resistance. The greater the potential reward, the louder the voice urging retreat. And so they continue forward despite uncertainty. They continue despite doubt. They continue despite the internal battle taking place within them, because they recognize that the person standing between them and greatness is rarely an enemy, a competitor, or a circumstance. It is the old version of themselves desperately trying to survive the inevitable ascension. There comes a moment in every transformation when success stops being a possibility and starts becoming a certainty. Most people never reach this stage, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity. They fail because they abandon the process before momentum begins working in their favor. Machiavelli understood that power is rarely gained through a single event. It is accumulated piece by piece, decision by decision, discipline by discipline. A rise that appears sudden to the world is usually the result of countless invisible victories stacked on top of one another. And once enough of those victories accumulate, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your progress becomes difficult to stop. At first, growth feels slow. Every effort seems insignificant. Every sacrifice appears unnoticed. You work while others relax. You learn while others distract themselves. You improve while others remain comfortable. The rewards seem distant. The results appear small, but beneath the surface, momentum is forming. Like a river carving through stone, the changes may seem invisible from day to day, yet over time they become impossible to deny. This is where most people misunderstand success. They believe achievement is created by motivation. Machiavelli would disagree. Motivation is unreliable. It appears and disappears like the wind. Powerful people do not depend on motivation. They depend on systems. They depend on discipline. They depend on habits that continue operating long after emotions have faded. And eventually these habits begin producing results that seem disproportionate to the effort invested. One opportunity leads to another. One skill creates access to new possibilities. One improvement attracts greater responsibilities. One victory opens doors that were previously invisible. The individual who once struggled to move forward now discovers that momentum is carrying him further than he imagined. This is the beginning of inevitable ascension, not because fate has chosen you, not because luck has arrived, but because your actions have created a foundation too strong to ignore. Think about how people react when someone suddenly succeeds. Friends become shocked. Critics become silent. Observers become curious. They ask the same question: how did this happen? What they fail to understand is that success leaves clues long before it becomes visible. The person who rises dramatically has usually been preparing quietly for years. The confidence they display was built through repeated challenges. The discipline they possess was forged through countless moments of resistance. The opportunities they receive are often attracted by capabilities developed long before anyone was paying attention. The world only notices the explosion. It never notices the pressure building beneath the surface. This is why your current position should not deceive you. If you are consistently improving, you are already moving toward a destination many people will never reach. Every book you read strengthens your mind. Every challenge you overcome strengthens your resilience. Every distraction you reject strengthens your focus. Every difficult decision strengthens your character. These advantages compound. At first, they seem insignificant. Then they become powerful. Eventually, they become unstoppable. Machiavelli observed that fortune favors those who prepare themselves for her arrival. Most people spend their lives waiting for circumstances to improve. Powerful individuals improve themselves regardless of circumstances, and when opportunity finally appears, they are ready. The unprepared see luck. The prepared see opportunity. This distinction changes everything, because the higher version of yourself is not created during moments of success. It is created before success arrives. Victory is simply the public recognition of private preparation. Promotion is recognition. Wealth is recognition. The influence is recognition. The achievements are recognition. The true transformation happened long before those things appeared. And once that transformation reaches a certain point, your ascent becomes increasingly difficult to prevent. Habits are established, mindset is strengthened, focus is sharpened, emotional discipline is developed, need for validation has disappeared, fear of criticism has weakened, distractions that once consumed your attention no longer possess the same power. You begin operating differently, you think differently, you make decisions differently, you carry yourself differently, and because of this, your results begin separating you from the majority. Not overnight, but inevitably. This is the stage where many people finally realize a profound truth. The breakthrough they were chasing was never a single moment. It was the gradual construction of a person capable of creating breakthroughs repeatedly, because true power is not achieving success once. True power is becoming the kind of individual for whom success becomes a natural consequence of who they have become. The crowd may call it luck. The doubters may call it coincidence. The critics may search desperately for explanations. But deep down, you know the truth. You know every sacrifice that was made. You know every difficult decision that shaped your character. You know every moment you continued forward while others surrendered. You know every battle that nobody saw. And that is why, when your rise finally becomes visible to the world, it will seem sudden only to those who were never paying attention